to the Truth in My Days podcast, where we defend the Word of God against the challenges of men.
Hello all, today we have Sonia interviewing John about the popular novel, The Da Vinci Code. We continue to look at the popular book's claim that there were multiple Christianities and over 80 gospel books had to compete for us to get what we have today. We are continuing from the previous episode today. We hope you enjoy!
So what does that leave us then of these supposed other gospels? Remember, we're told there were more than 80? It leaves us with two. The Gospel of Thomas and the secret Gospel of Mark. That's a rather far cry from more than 80, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Okay, now, the Gospel of Thomas is actually the one that gets the most play. This is the one that liberal skeptics really want to convince you is an actual gospel, on par with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and in fact superior to them. They will claim that this was actually written before Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Maybe as old as Q. So isn't that cool? You have Q with no resurrection account.
Does Gospel of Thomas have a resurrection account?
No, of course not. And here's the thing, Q, we don't have a copy of Q, do we?
No.
We skeptics claim that the stuff that's in Matthew and Luke, that's not in Mark, came from Q. Okay, yeah. So we would know that so-called double tradition, that's in Q. Can we possibly know what else is in Q?
No.
So how could we know there's no resurrection account?
Well, I guess we can't.
We can't. Yet liberal scholars with a straight face will tell you, yep, Q's the earliest, or maybe Thomas is the earliest, and neither of them have a resurrection account, and so you see, resurrection wasn't important to the early Christians. That's an idea that came in later. Now we'll see when we do another topic, they will claim the same thing about Mark, actually, and claim that the three earliest sources don't have it, but that's a story for another day. Now, so let's look at this Gospel of Thomas. This one is so promoted by liberal skeptics that the Jesus Seminar, which is a rather well-known liberal skeptic scholarly group that's even seen as kind of over the top by other liberal scholars, they actually published an edition of what they call the five Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Thomas. And trying to convince us that Thomas belongs in the canon along with the four books we have. And here certainly is one where they're very much hoping that you don't read it, because nobody who reads it could take it seriously. First of all, it's not a gospel. It doesn't tell the life, deeds, miracles, death, and resurrection of Jesus. What it is a list of 114 sayings, some of them taken straight out of the gospel books, just copied, and some of them copied but with crucial parts missing. And the rest read like crazy fortune cookie sayings written by somebody on crack. They're just absolutely wacky.
Well, where do you think it came from? Who would write something like that?
It's Gnostic material. This book, skeptics would like to argue, like to proclaim that's earlier than Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In reality, the Gospel of Thomas could not have been written before the year AD 170, the latter part of the 2nd century, more than 100 years after Jesus' time.
Why do you say that?
Because, as I said, there are parts that are just copied out from gospel books, but they're not in exactly the form in which they appear in the gospel books. Our copy of the Gospel of Thomas is in Coptic. Few fragments in Greek, 3 fragments in Greek from the 3rd century, and then the Coptic one that was found in Nag Hammadi was from the 5th century. Around the year 170, a church leader named Tatian wrote the first Gospel Harmony. The Gospel Harmony is taking the 4 separate gospel books and combining them into one complete account. So you put in everything from all 4 books into one account. When Tatian did this, and I believe he did do it in Coptic, by combining texts from more than one gospel books, he created new forms that are not in the original gospel books because they come from combining ones that are in the gospel books. And some of these new forms actually appear in the Gospel of Thomas. And since they were created by Tatian in 170, if the Gospel of Thomas is using it, must come from after 170.
Unless someone says that Tatian took it from Gospel of Thomas.
Well, since the rest of it is so utterly different, it would be very difficult to make that argument. So there's your Gospel of Thomas. Now, I'm going to read out a few of these strange sayings from the Gospel of Thomas, and we can see whether it would sound as if this is true teachings from Jesus, and whether they can possibly be taken seriously. So I'm reading now from the Gospel of Thomas, the translation from Marvin Meyer. Let's start with saying number 4 in the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, "The person old in days will not hesitate to ask a little child 7 days old about the place of life, and that person will live. For many of the first will be last and will become a single one."
Okay, it sounds like garbled, corrupted stuff from things he actually said.
Let's listen to saying 7. Jesus said, "Fortunate is the lion that the human will eat, so that the lion becomes human. And foul is the human that the lion will eat, and the lion will become human."
What?
Exactly. What? Number 11. Jesus said, "This heaven will pass away, and the one above it will pass away. The dead are not alive, and the living will not die. During the days when you ate what is dead, you made it alive. When you are in the light, what will you do? On the day when you were one, you became two. But when you became two, what will you do?"
I have to wonder who could even think of such things to write, and why.
Number 12. The followers said to Jesus, "We know that you are going to leave us. Who will be our leader?" Jesus said to them, "No matter where you are to go to James the Just, for whose sake heaven and earth came into being." And remember, skeptics want us to believe that this is the earliest and most authentic version of Jesus' teachings. They're hoping very much you don't actually read it.
Then why the Jesus Seminar publish this book?
Well, the Jesus Seminar didn't publish this one. They published the 5 Gospels. Well, because they want to push the idea that Thomas is as legitimate as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I think they're counting on the fact that people will be familiar with this book, the 5 Gospels, but not bother reading it. Either that or they'll put in lots of commentary trying to justify this kind of lunacy. Saying number 14, the first part. Jesus said to them, "If you fast, you will bring sin upon yourselves, and if you pray, you will be condemned, and if you give to charity, you will harm your spirit."
What?
Yeah. How about saying 19, first part of that? Jesus said, "Fortunate is one who came into being before coming into being."
That doesn't even make sense.
No, really.
None of them does.
That's what I said. They sound like absolute nonsense. Second part of saying 22. Jesus said to them, "When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male, nor the female be female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, a hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will enter the kingdom." Sound like the true gospel, the true teaching of Jesus, and that should have gotten into the gospel, into the canon? No, I don't think so. How about number 56 here? 56. Jesus said, "Whoever has come to know the world has discovered a carcass. Whoever has discovered a carcass, of that person the world is not worthy." Yeah, this should tell you something about liberal scholars, shouldn't it? Saying number 72. A person said to him, "Tell my brothers to divide my father's possessions with me." He said to the person, "Mister, who made me a divider?" He turned to his disciples and said to them, "I'm not a divider, am I?" Number 98. Jesus said, "The Father's kingdom is like a person who wanted to put someone powerful to death. While at home, he drew his sword and thrust it into the wall to find out whether his hand would go in. Then he killed the powerful one." Sound good? No. 105. Jesus said, "Whoever knows the father and the mother will be called the child of a whore."
I'm speechless.
Let's continue. Number 108. Jesus said, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me. I myself shall become that person, and the hidden things will be revealed to that person." And finally, number 114, the last one, my personal favorite. You'll just appreciate this one, I know, Sonia. Saying 114. Simon Peter said to them, Mary should leave us, for females are not worthy of life. Jesus said, look, I shall guide her to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit resembling you males. For every female who makes herself male will enter heaven's kingdom.
Well, I guess if liberal scholars want to bash Christianity, then they really will. Then they'll want people to know that part.
Well, again, but it discredits them because nobody who reads the Gospel of Thomas could possibly conclude honestly that this was a legitimate gospel account. These are legitimate teachings of Jesus that belong in the canon alongside of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Something that was written minimum 140 years after Jesus' time, has no apostolic authority, and again, it's clearly ripped off of Tatian's Diatessaron and mixed in with a whole bunch of Gnostic idiocies. So, interesting, actually, when you look at the, compare the gospel books to Thomas, you have the manuscripts, okay, of the New Testament gospel books. There are total manuscripts in the order of thousands, about 5,800 from the New Testament, and not all of them include the gospel books, but probably about 3,000 do. They go back into some of them into the early 2nd century. The earliest quotation is from Clement of Rome around the year 70. It's probably before the New Testament was even completed. The earliest discussion of these books is by Papias. The only one that's come down to us is around the year 100. And yet for all this, we've looked at the evidence for the dates. Matthew around 40 to 41, Mark 42 to 43, Luke 48 to 49, John 65. Liberals conclude that these books are all written after AD 70. They're not reliable. When it comes to the Gospel of Thomas, we look at the evidence. Instead of 3,000 manuscripts, we have 4. One of them is from AD 340. That's the Coptic one. 3 tiny little fragments from the 3rd century. It's quoted, the earliest, by Hippolytus, somewhere in the 3rd century, first half of the 3rd century, and discussed by Origen around the same time, and they are against it. They're telling this is a fake book. The liberal scholar conclusion is that, nope, Thomas is from the 1st century, it predates the canonical Gospels, and it is reliable. Do we see a certain intellectual dishonesty in liberal scholarship here? What do you think?
Yes.
I would think so, yes. Now that leaves us with one and only one alternate, the secret mark, and that one is actually very, very, very funny and very telling.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but please join us for the next part, same time and same place. If you enjoy our content and think this is important material, the best compliment you can pay is by sharing this with your friends and family. This helps us out a lot. Also, if you enjoyed today's program, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to the Truth in My Days podcast with John Torse. We would love to hear from you. Please feel free to share any questions or comments you may have. You can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, MeWe, and YouTube. Simply search Truth in My Days as one word. Again, Truth in My Days as one word, no spaces in between. And you can connect with us. You may also visit our website for more comprehensive material and to learn more about our ministry. Our website is truthinmydays.com. Thank you.